What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Aftersound here, bringing you Splinterlands content every single day. We also stream right here on this channel as well as on Twitch, so make sure you come by and say hello. This video is also brought to you by my music, which is available anywhere you stream music under the name Aftersound. And I do have a new song out recently called Don't Forget About Me, the Supernova version, so check it out. Let me know what you think, and I appreciate the support. All right, guys, let's jump into this week's land update. There wasn't one last week. I think Cryptomancer had like part of the time off, so this is the most recent update coming on June 10th, 2025. And I'll read through it and then give my thoughts at the end. Actually, I'm not even going to make that promise. I might give my thoughts as we go along just because something usually pops up. But here we go. Land Barons. Here is this week's land update. The following has been done since my last update. So number one, created 2 new craftables related to the upcoming Yabba's Pickle card, which we've decided to call Fortune Draws and Auction Marks. Number 2, added craft more buttons as a quality of life improvement to the non-card market details page for Midnight Potions, Fortune Draws, and Auction Marks. And 3, ensured that Fortune Draws and Auction Marks can be crafted, transferred between players, sold on the non-card market, and appear with the appropriate context-sensitive menu options on the item inventory screen. Number 4, updated links to the Artisan's Quarter crafting tab to auto-select the relevant item to craft based on the context, since we now have more than Midnight Potions. And number 5, started working on a true Harvest All feature that will allow all resources within a region to be claimed with one operation, as opposed to having to claim each resource type one by one. Note that castles and keep will still be claimed separately, though I won't rule out the possibility of having them brought into the fold in a potential, and very much now hypothetical, third iteration of this feature. There is no release date for any of the above. I consider items 1 through 4 nearer term things, with item 5 being further out due to its complexity and potential for other land projects to interrupt work on it. Priorities feel very fluid these days, says Cryptomancer. A little bit of I don't know, him sharing something there. Here's some related teaser screenshots for which the usual disclaimers apply. Nothing shown here is released yet. There's no ETA to release, and everything shown may change up right until the moment of release. Now, we do know that the Auction Marks as well as the Auction Marks and Fortune Draws, those do have, kind of at least a hard deadline in terms of when they begin, but that's not until, probably later in July and then in September, I believe, if I remember correctly. But you can see here, you can transfer, here's the craft more button. Let's see, crafting station, auction mark. It shows exactly what you need and what your balances are, so that's cool. And then the number of auction marks you currently own. These can be used. Okay. So what's interesting about this, and I didn't go into any other commentary that he had here, but it doesn't look like there's much right away. So the first thing that jumps out to me is the fact that, well, I guess it makes sense that all the stuff is like land related. Technically, it's like it's using aura, it's using land resources, but it's like, man, I wish Cryptomancer was working on some other stuff for land, right? Not that like he shouldn't be working on this or they should find somebody else, but it's like, okay, like I understand like this is technically land related, only in the sense that it uses aura. But if we keep getting sidetracked with a bunch of these different things and there's nobody to work on like the promo, like if there was somebody who focused on the promo cards, like Cryptomancer is going to be, it just seems like to me Cryptomancer is going to be, thrown left and right. And this is me maybe reading between the lines of his comments here, right? Priorities feel very fluid these days. I don't think he's saying that in a negative context. It's just things come up, right? Things come up. And here's one that nobody had on their radar. Another promo card that was going to not be the voucher promo card. It was going to be something completely separate. And it's going to incorporate vouchers. It's going to incorporate DEC. It's going to incorporate land items. And so that gets pushed to Cryptomancer rather than maybe somebody else on the team. And again, I know the team is strapped for resources. I'm not trying to like pin this on somebody else. It's just that my first thought is like, okay, well, like when does Cryptomancer start doing longer term things to get 2.0 out, right? Or even 1.8, 1.9, whatever you want to call it. And again, I have no idea what's happening behind the scenes. I have to imagine, especially with Matt being able to focus more on things, that he's probably planning this stuff out, and Cryptomancer and him are having those conversations. And this is just the stuff that Cryptomancer is working on now. But I would like to see Cryptomancer working on longer term stuff. And again, this number 5 item here, right, the True Harvest All feature. Again, great. It's a quality of life thing, and I know because I don't have a region, it doesn't impact me as much. Although True Harvest All wouldn't be bad. Just in general, as I need to go through all 4 or 5 resources that I can get. So again, this is quality of life stuff. It's good, but when do we see? Actually, it's not even when do we see. When is Cryptomancer? Now that we're in June already, when is Cryptomancer going to have the time and the capacity to start focusing on really building out the long-term vision of land? And I'm not saying that I want it tomorrow or even end of the year or next year. It's just every week we see these updates, and it's like, okay, working on this, then quickly pivot to this, then quickly pivot to this, right? And that's kind of been the case since 1.75 came out. 1.75 came out, and it was like, all right, like, are we going to start working towards 1.8, 1.9, 2.0? And it's like, actually, we're going to do Midnight Potions. And then after Midnight Potions, actually, we're going to do Yabba's Pickle, right? So when does that happen? It's now been 3 months since 1.75 is out. When do we get the longer term, again, not planning, but the execution on that planning? Because I know the planning is probably happening. So again, I don't want to belabor that point too much. It's just a thought that popped into my head as I was reading through this and realizing that we are 3 months out of, or 3 months past 1.75. And it's like, I love all the stuff that they're doing. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to be a complainer here. I'm just curious, when does Cryptomancer find the time to start actually getting 1.8, 1.9, and 2.0 out? So that's just my first initial thought with that. Second thing, and I'll close off with this, is the auction process seems to be something that the team thought was very successful. And if you look at it, it really feels as though they are building that they're building an infrastructure here for any and all future auction processes, right? Any and all future auction sales, I should say, to kind of follow in the same footsteps of utilizing vouchers, utilizing land, and of course being a DEC burn or sink or whatever it is. So in a way, I like that. This is what I was hoping Matt would be able to do when he had more time to really think through, like, how do you get the game to feel much more cohesive so that it's not that you need to be doing everything, but everything is included, right? This is all one big ecosystem that is drawing in on itself in all the different pieces, right? So again, vouchers have historically been kind of like whatever, but there's a streamlined, there's kind of like a streamlined utility for it now. Land has also been kind of whatever for the last like year and a half plus, right? Since 1.5 came out, but now we're starting to see land get integrated more in things like this and things like conflicts, right? So the larger vision of Splinterlands as a project and the cohesiveness of all the moving pieces actually interacting with one another is actually pretty cool, right? So I think that that's great. I don't know what's around the corner, and again, I'm not even saying like from an auction perspective, but just like any other kind of feature that the team might put in. Again, keep in mind, a year ago, the auction thing was not even something that we thought about. Maybe some people had the idea and they were throwing it out there, but now this is going to be like the second auction that we have. And there's all these rails built or infrastructure and rails built for utilizing land resources, not directly, but indirectly with something like Aura, which I guess technically is still a land resource, right? But I'm talking about the natural resources that we've been mining since 1.5 and 1.75 came out, grain, and then of course the other three. So, all in all, it's cool to see land development. Again, if you take anything away from this, please let it not be something negative. It's just, I'm trying to get a better understanding of what the game plan and the roadmap for land looks like to get us to 2.0. I still love the fact that we're getting so much land utility and there's finding ways in which that they can incorporate a bunch of different things, including the resources, including this. But, as I said earlier, it's like we went from 1.75 launch to Midnight Potions, now to Yabba's Pickle. My guess is after he's done with the Yabba's Pickle stuff, he's going to pivot over to the Mage Wagons because he has experience doing that in the past, right? Or at least he did that for the Conflict Wagons for Rebellion, and now this is going to be different with the new resources. So, that maybe gets Cryptomancer to July, maybe even August, right? At that point of like being done with this stuff. And so there you have it. It's like 4 months of doing stuff and pivoting from one to another without actually focusing on the long term. Like that's a third of the year. So I'm just curious what the long-term plan looks like. I would love for the team to release a roadmap. Again, not even necessarily from a timing perspective. I don't want them to get, tripped up and caught up in the fact that they put out timings. That's not what I'm looking for, but it's like, what does this look like when Matt and Cryptomancer sit down and they look at this and say, okay, we want to build towards 2.0. And we know that there's going to be some detours along the way. But we want to try and work towards this first as 1.8, this next as 1.9, and then, of course, like 2.0, right? And here are the areas in which we have bandwidth to do a couple of detours if something cool comes up. Because I always want them to pivot if something really cool comes up. So that's all I have for you guys in this video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Otherwise, I will catch you all in the next one and see you around the game. Take care.